All right, so today we'll be going over Linux utilities and the amount of time we have. These are basically really useful commands for security and convenience. So this is the list. All right, so we'll start with ClamAV. So ClamAV is an open source antivirus engine for detecting Trojans, viruses, malware, and other malicious threats. So in terms of basic usage, we'll be using it to remove any malware, as well as identifying and removing infected files, which are files affected by virus. And just as a heads up, almost all of today's lecture is through the terminal. All right, I think it's loading out. Just power off and power back on. Anyway, I was saying that most of today's lecture is on the terminal. Yeah, so I'll just restart my virtual machine. One important thing for ClamAV is that you need like a good amount of memory allocated to your virtual machine. So I'm not sure how to do that with VMware for you Windows people, but for macOS, if you're on VirtualBox, first make sure your VM is powered off, right? And go to System and make sure you have at least 2048 megabytes of memory. So yeah, otherwise your ClamAV isn't going to work. Anyway, so all right, I'm good now. Sorry about the background noise. Again, we're spending most of our time in the terminal. Some of these utilities have a separate GUI. I'll cover if they're applicable. So to install ClamAV, first make sure you're in root. I'm spending most of my time in root. Almost all of these require root. So to install, sudo apt get ClamAV, as well as ClamAV daemon. I already installed both of these, but make sure you remember to install both packages, not just one of them. All right, when you install ClamAV though, the first thing you want to do is kill the process. We do this because as soon as we install it, we need to update the virus signatures. So ctl stop ClamAV fresh. All right. System ctl stop ClamAV fresh. Okay, so I'll show the slides. All right. Yeah, so basically the third bullet point. Sorry, my thing's like bugging out. All right, and then to update the virus signatures, you want to run freshclam. Right, so once you stop the process and run freshclam, you're ready to start scanning your system for a bunch of scary viruses. So the main command for ClamAV is clamscan, right? That's like the base command, if you will. It also has like the addition of arguments, and then the final argument is the directory you want to run the scan on. So if you want to print out your infected files, you -- infected. If you want to remove those infected files, -- remove. And if you want to scan all of your subdirectories of your current directory, -- recursive as well. So you can specify your root folder, but I'm not going to do that because that takes a couple minutes. So I'll do my documents folder. Right. Again, so if you don't have enough memory allocated to your VM, chances are your thing is going to exit out right here and just print out killed instead of the desired output. So again, make sure you have enough memory allocated. All right, and so we just wait for this to run. Yeah, the slides as well as my personal notes will be on the website. Can you guys see the commands? Like, is it too small?
What is the system ctl stop ClamAV that part for?
Okay, so once you install ClamAV, right, you want to update the virus signatures to make sure everything's up to date, right? So in order to update the virus signatures, the first step is killing the process, which automatically starts running. I'll retype in the command ctr stop. Oh, God. Okay, well. Let's go to YouTube. Right, yeah, this is the command. Right. Yeah, so anyway, that's the command. All right, so yeah, I need to get new friends. Anyway, as you can see, this is the output of our scan. So since my documents folder only has 4 files, it's scanned. Well, it's 3 files now, I guess. It has 3 files. There's no infected files, which is very nice. If there were any infected files, they'd be printed out and they'd also be removed. So yeah, that's basic issues of ClamAV. As I said earlier, there's also a GUI version of this, which is ClamTK. To install that, it's sudo apt dash. Oh my god, my computer's bugging out today. Oh my god. Let's show the command. I already installed it. It's sudo apt-get install clamtk. All right, here it is. Next slide. Sudo apt-get install clamtk. Right, and to run it is just clamtk. Kind of like GF. Oh my god. Kind of like GFW. Wow. Okay. So just wait a couple seconds for that to pop up. And there it is. It looks kind of like a video game logo. All right, so you have if to do what we just did previously, you hit scan a directory. All right, and so if you want to scan your entire system, you select root. Oh, Ryan just shared the slides if you guys want to follow along. If you want to scan the entire directory, you just hit the entire system, you just select root. Or you can specify, so go to your home. I can choose for this user, right? And go to my documents, and it's essentially the same thing as running in the terminal. Right, so that's the GUI. Anyway, again, as I've been mentioning, I'm going over very basic usage. So what happens if you want to learn more about the specific nitty-gritty arguments, right? GTK, it's irrelevant. It doesn't cause the thing to crash. I'm just kidding. It's not very important. I'm pretty sure it's something with a config file, but it's not causing any problems. Anyway, if you want to learn more about the arguments, you use a thing called man pages, short for manual pages. So what are man pages? Man pages are basically a documentation manual for your given commands. Right? So they're really useful for understanding a command if you don't know what it already is, as well as knowing the arguments associated with it. So let's look at clamtk's manual page. ClamAV. ClamScan's manual page. So it gives a nice little description up here. We already know what ClamScan is. It also gives this very long list of arguments. So let's say you, for whatever reason, didn't want your summary to be printed out. There it is. It's pretty nice. So man pages are for basically any Linux command, right? So even if it's something built in like apt, right, you can see the man page for that. But yeah, to exit out of the man page, just hit Q for quit, as it says down here. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so next we'll be going over GUFW, which is, hopefully you guys already know what it is, so this should be reviewed. GUFW is a very simple firewall GUI that's powered by the built-in UFW, which is uncomplicated firewall. It's very lightweight, so very simple, which is good for us. Okay, so I've already installed it. The installation is sudo apt-get install GUFW. Oh yeah, I forgot to say this earlier. Make sure you run sudo apt-get update before all of this to make sure all of your packages are up to date. Otherwise, you might have issues installing these. Okay. Run GUFW, and just type in GUFW. All right, I'm pretty sure I already have my firewall on. So yeah, by default, I think for the images, it's almost always status is off. So just by turning it on, you usually get points. So that's usually where it ends. But one neat thing with GFW is you can manage rules. So rules give you the power to allow and deny traffic on specific ports for certain services. So let's see if okay. So by the way, to add or subtract rules, your firewall needs to be on. So all right, I'm not sure if it's obvious, but I'm lagging out. All right. You know what, we're pressed on time anyway. Rules aren't that important. If you do want to add a rule, you hit the plus button. I'll explain it through the slides. Okay. Yeah, you just hit this plus button down here, and you hit this plus button, and then you specify the name. So here I was allowing SSH on port 22. So the policy direction protocol were already pre-specified. If you want to block traffic, you just change policy to, I think it's deny. So yeah. This will choose when it wants to close. All right. Moving on to Ranger. All right. Ranger is more of a convenience kind of thing, but it's really useful. So Ranger is a file manager that you can open through the terminal. So up until now, we've kind of been using ls to view our directories. Well, this isn't closing. We've been using ls to view our directories. All right, I'm just gonna power this down. Yeah, so what Ranger does is it allows you through the terminal to use your arrow keys to navigate between folders. So I'll be showing that right now. All right, the installation for Ranger is again very simple: sudo apt get install Ranger. That's about it. And to use it, you just need to type in the word Ranger, all lowercase. This is a typo. All lowercase. Yeah. So this decides to do it. Yeah, it's the GTK message. Yep, technical difficulties every time. All right. Moving on, I guess. I'll use a presentation to explain everything. So Tiger is a collection of shell scripts used for security auditing and host intrusion detection. So the main purpose of Tiger is that it checks the system configuration files as well as the status. So in other words, it scans the entire system, like the system files as well as user configuration files, and it generates a report based off of them. One con of Tiger though is that it's somewhat old. I believe it hasn't been updated since 2018. So regardless of that, it's still pretty useful. Wow, this still isn't. All right, I'll try this one more time. The installation for Tiger is pretty simple. Sudo apt install Tiger, and then you just type in Tiger to run it. Yeah, VirtualBox is kind of annoying. Oh, hey, it worked. Let's go. You know what? I'll show Ranger, Tiger, and Linus at the same time. All right, an alternative to Linus, to Tiger is Linus. Linus is super similar in that it's also a security auditing tool that performs a security scan of the system. It also generates a report. So in terms of info, it's very similar. It scans system information, vulnerable software packages, as well as possible configuration issues in the packages. The installation is sudo apt Linus. Okay, I'm on macOS. I'll just do this to my terminal. It's actually okay. Okay, I'll do this to my. That wants to load. All right, so. Oh my. All right, now we're back. Yeah. All right, so I know that was kind of messy. Anyway, I covered Ranger, Linus, and Tiger. I'll be going over those right now. All right. So starting with Ranger, in case you guys don't remember, Ranger is the file manager. All right. Yes. You don't have to be in sudo for Ranger, so type in Ranger. Yeah. So this is the UI for Ranger. It's kind of nice. You use your arrow keys to navigate up and down. And next to each folder, it says the number of files within that directory. So in my documents folder, I have 3 files. If I want to go inside of my documents folder, the equivalent of CDing inside of it, just the right arrow key. I know you can't see my arrow key, my right arrow key. If you want to edit the file, you hit enter. I believe it opens it in Nano. I opened the wrong file. It opens it in Nano, right here. Nano's a text editor. If you have time, we'll go over it, but we probably won't. Anyway, exit out of Nano with Control X. It brings you back to Ranger. So one really useful application of Ranger is that oftentimes for side pages, you have to quickly go through the you need a quick way to go through each user's directories for like miscellaneous files, like games or non-work related stuff. So Ranger gives you like the number of stuff inside of that directory, so you can quickly go for each user. So for the Rafa user, check all the stuff. Right, to exit out of Ranger, which is Q. All right, so that's Ranger. Next is Linus. I mean Tiger. Tiger. Again, Tiger is a security auditing tool. To do a full system scan, hit Tiger, and you can sudo. Right. So what it's doing right now is it's running individual tests, right? A bunch of tests. So password, checking my passwords, checking my group configs. Once it's done with this, it'll output all of its. It'll output everything to a log file. So the way we use Linus is basically reading the log file. So we'll wait for it to produce that. Oh, just as a heads up, it doesn't really matter how you look at the log file. Again, you could use like a text editor. You can just like cat it, which is what I'm gonna do. Yeah, so it's running all of its checks. All right, this is taking longer than it should. I'll just end it right now. All right, it wasn't able to drink the log file, but let me see if I still have it. Okay. Normally, to check out the log file, you do cats the log file path. It usually depends. Like it depends on, like it's usually different for each user. For me, I think it was in my /var, but it's not like that. The log file is pretty intuitive, so if you just cat it, it's pretty simple. Again, the log file appears at the end of your checks. I'm running out of time, so I won't be able to wait for that to happen. All right, so Linus. Again, Linus is super similar to Tiger. The only difference is that the report is a little different. So to run the Linus scan, it's Linus audit system. All right, so like Tiger, we don't have to wait for the entire thing to run. So yeah, so one really neat thing about Linus is that it divides all of its tests into sections. So here are the system tool sections. Here are the Debian test section. Right. It's also really pretty. It's color coded very nicely. So it's pretty intuitive. Green means you're fine. Red means you should probably check it out, especially if it says warning. You should really check that out. Yellow means like it's not necessarily security vulnerability, but it is something worth looking into. So yeah. So one thing you might notice though is that while it does say the test name, it's not really descriptive, right? So it's saying it's checking it, right? But like we don't really know what the output of that check is. So at the end of this, it should give a more detailed description of each of your yellows and each of your reds. Right. Yeah, line is the last thing we'll cover, so I'll just wait for this to finish. All right, while we wait for that, actually, to finish running, final thing I was going to go over, but I guess we're running with time, is text editors. So hopefully by now you guys have found your optimal text editor, right? So the three, I guess, main ones that usually already come installed inside your image are Gedit, Nano, and Vim. I think we've gone over Gedit, I think, in the past, maybe Nano too. So yeah, this is still loading. So I guess we'll go over the pros and cons of each one. All right, so Gedit. Gedit is basically like a separate interface that allows you to check out your file. So one of the pros is that it's super simple. Like you can use your mouse to navigate through the entire file. If you guys are familiar with like IDEs, like Visual Studio Code, it's think of a super watered down version of that, right, of your typical IDE. I think if you select a language and install some plugins, you might have some level of customability, but in terms of CyberPatriots, you probably won't have the time for that. So yeah, just request to fierce game. Right. There's Nano, which is somewhat more complex than Vim. It's one of the pros is that it also has a simple interface and that there's way more keyboard commands. One con though is that you can't really use your mouse anymore. So like going through the entire file is kind of a chore. There's also not as many keyboard commands as Vim. Vim is has the steepest learning curve out of the other two. Like you can learn Nano and get it in like a couple of minutes, right? Vim has a very wide assortment of keyboard commands, right, which is both a pro and con. So it has a bit of a learning curve. So basically any key on your keyboard is associated with a special command, almost every single one. Right. Yeah, so I'm sorry I'm doing this in parts. Trying to stay efficient here. Right, so my minus thing finished. Right. So right. So at the end, it lists the warnings and suggestions. Warnings in red, suggestions in yellow. So one cool thing is that it associates each warning/error with a ID. So if you want to learn more about each error, aside from this basic overview, again, these are suggestions. Errors are at the very top of this list. So yeah, well, not errors, warnings. Warnings are at the very top of this. So if you want to learn more about like the outputs of that test for the suggestion or warning, the command is minus and show details and test ID. And I didn't copy it. All right. Let me just copy something like this. By the way, it's 3:14. If you guys want to leave, you can. If you want to stick around for the presentation, you can also do that. So I'm just looking really fast at that. Right. All right. So unfortunately, it's not really. I think you can do something very similar with Tiger, which is like accessing the details through the ID. For Tiger, it gives you a very nice little paragraph about it. This is more of like kind of like the outputs, the raw outputs of the test. So yeah, it's not super helpful unless you know specifically what you're looking for. But you know, if you do want to learn more about a specific suggestion or error, you use the show details. Also, I went over a very basic usage of Linus, and I barely went over Tiger. If you want to learn more about either one, let's say Tiger, so check out the man page. Man Tiger gives a lot more specific overview. Again, so if you're running Linus, chances are you might not need to run Tiger. I prefer Linus because it's prettier and it's also better maintained. All right, I'll go over text editor super fast too. Right, so Gedit. Hopefully you guys are familiar with Gedit. Gedit, and then the text file, in this case lorem.txt. Right, so again, you can use your cursor to highlight stuff, which is kind of OP. Like you can't do that with Nano or Vim. You can also do Control F to search for search phrases. It's not case sensitive, so I guess that's important. You know, once you make your changes, just hit the save button. Again, super simple. Oh, one thing about Gedit, which might be a con, is that it's a separate interface from the terminal. You guys, you see, I had to exit out of that, right? So you don't open it directly through the terminal. So what I mean by that is, if you use Nano, right, the entire Nano interface is opened inside of the terminal. By the way, this text file is just gibberish. You don't have to like read it or anything. Right. So to navigate through Nano, you have to use your arrow keys. So if I wanted to get to the very end of this line, I have to just wait for the arrow key to get there. An important thing to note is that if the line is cut off, right, there's this dollar sign, right? So keep this in mind if you're ever like copying pasting inside of Nano, right? So if I were to copy and paste this dollar sign would appear at the end. These it comes with a couple of keyboard, I guess keyboard shortcuts at the very bottom. So to save a Nano file, it's Control O. To the equivalent of Control F is Control W. So if I want to search for hello spelled incorrectly. One thing to note is that searching in Nano is only forward, meaning that it's search after where your cursor is, right? So it won't search anything before that. Right. Then there's Vim. All right, there's a lot to cover with Vim, so I'll just talk about it super quickly. Vim, see, all right, when you first open Vim and you're not familiar with it, you try to type something, nothing happens, or it does if you double click, right? But yeah, it's kind of weird. To actually like make basic modifications, you hit I. Vim comes in two modes, I and normal mode, insertion mode and normal mode. By default, you open it up in normal mode and hit I to go to insertion mode. To go back to normal mode, you hit escape. So insertion mode is super similar to Nano. You use your arrow keys to navigate around. You can type whatever you want. Where Vim really sticks out is in its normal mode. So with normal mode, there's a very wide variety of keyboard shortcuts. So I guess I'm run out of time. I put together a little list of shortcuts, some very basic shortcuts. If there's way more than this, but with these you'll be at least somewhat functional, right? So if you want to delete your current line, it's DE. If you want to highlight a section, so you hit V, which is pretty nice. And if you want to copy that section, you hit Y. If you want to delete that section, you hit D again. If you paste that section, you just hit P. Yeah, it's 3:20 also, so I guess that's the end of this lecture. And all of my notes and commands, I know I wasn't able to go completely through Tiger, and I was able to go completely through Vim. That's a typo, I meant Vim. So check out the slides if you want to review stuff. Also check out the man pages. each of these commands. Maybe I'll do Q to save and exit. And then by the way. That's fine.